it's Holly Marie King, and I am here with another chapter of Not a Dream, the final draft. We're on chapter 14. We're almost halfway through the book, so hooray! Alright, but anyway, so let's just get started then. Chapter 14, On a Thin Line. So what happened to your wives, old man? So what happened to your wives, old man? Ellen asked the father. Did you get tired of them yakking all the time? I think I meant yapping. Ellen, Helen scolded. They both loved their wives. Thank you, dear, the old woman said to Helen. Maria and my mother were attacked, the young man said quietly. What attacked them? John asked the man. I don't want to talk about it. The young man swept out of the room. I'm sorry. Andrew has always been such a sensitive boy, the old woman said sadly. I'll go talk to him, Helen volunteered, disappearing into Andrew's room. Andrew, I'm so pathetic. I don't understand why I always get so emotional, Andrew said from his bed. The room was too dark to really see anything. It's because he's a sissy. Why do you want someone like him in your group? The voice said angrily. Andrew seemed to sag more at these words. As usual, Helen decided to ignore the voice. It's okay, Helen said uncomfortably. I think it's because you love your family so much that you can't stand them getting hurt. For some reason, when she said this, Helen wanted to spit. Because she hates her frickin' family. They're baloney and terrible. I don't know if I'll be very helpful in this group, Andrew admitted, looking up. Trust me, Helen said, almost sighing in amusement. You can't make it any worse. You'll fit right in. So, Andrew stood, wiping his eyes dry. Where to next? Your mother knows that answer, Helen said, turning away from his door and walking to join the others in the living room. Andrew brushed past her while Helen stood in the doorway, looking in. It was so strange to be standing in a house with so many people in front of her. She had never felt so warm and welcome in her whole life. It made her... She couldn't place the emotion she was feeling, but she felt as though she would overflow with it if it continued to fill her. It's happiness, Elson answered the question that was on Helen's mind, and it makes you want to cry with joy. Please stay out of my thoughts, Helen said, feeling ashamed that someone was listening into her own private thoughts. I'm sorry. Elson hung her head in defeat. She just couldn't get things right with Helen. Little did she know that Helen liked the spirit more than anyone she had ever met. Whatever, we need to get going now, anyway, Helen said, brushing her off. Well, I'm ready whenever you are, dears, the old woman said cheerfully. Helen smiled, thanking God that there was a sane person joining them. Let's get going then. 20 minutes later, they were walking in the forest again, away from the small little home. Everyone looked back with regret, everyone except for Helen, who learned to not look back on things that only left a hole in your heart. Are you all right, dear? The old woman asked, looking at the sullen look on Helen's face. You look very unhappy. I'm fine, Helen said, waving her hand in the air. It's been a long journey, but it's only halfway through. Well, I'm sure it will be a fine trip at that moment. At that, the woman smiled a tiny smile. I'm sorry, I never got your name, Helen said to the old woman. Ah, my name is Natalie, and my husband's name is Reggie, the old woman said happily. She had a very settled sense about her. I can't wait to see my son happy again. Has it been hard on him to have his wife in new spirits? Oh, yes, he really is a fragile little boy, the woman said with a nod. Natalie, dear, we need to lead the group, Reggie said, walking back to them with a limp in his leg. Reggie had his son's soft green eyes, and once had light brown color in his hair, just like Andrew's. Helen cast her eyes in front of her, not wanting to draw attention to herself. You should go speak to them. They're all new to this adventure, Allison urged the girl. I don't speak well with others, Helen answered shyly. Nonsense, Allison said, shaking her head. You spoke with John and Ellen. I don't think John wants to talk to me anyway, and Ellen hates me, Helen answered her. All right, Allison said, stepping back. Suit yourself. If you don't want to make friends, don't. But here comes John, not to mention that you and John were getting along fine at his parents' house. You're looking grim, John said to Helen. Allison went to go join Burke, nudging the spirit in the side. Ellen walked with Andrew, talking frantically to the poor man. Natalie and Reggie were in the front, walking together arm in arm as if they were going on a leisurely walk. Rosie did cartwheels around the group in her excitement to be moving forward. I'm fine, Helen said quietly. You were more talkative when you met me the first time around, John said jokingly. So, now that we've been away from my parents' house, can you tell me more about that dream? Helen, why are you all the way back there? Ellen was hollering from 5 feet away. She was still attached to Andrew. It's okay. I'm here, John answered back. Sorry about that. You were saying? It's not important, Helen said, walking. Okay. Helen, sorry, I got distracted because I thought my my microphone might be off. So a moment. Anyway, back to the story. It's not important, Helen said, walking a little faster now. She slowed when she realized she was catching up to Ellen. Well, you were very upset about it when you had the dream. You told me you would tell me more about it later, and it definitely is later. John caught up with her, not even fazed. Don't you want to unload a little? Talk about it? What's there to talk about? Helen asked him. I was just trying to understand you a little better, John said, trying to get her to open up a little bit. Helen took a quick breath to steady herself, making sure she was detached from the words she was about to speak. The dream was from when my father left me, she said dully. Why would he do that? John asked, astonished. She looked at the ground, ashamed for his initial complaints. I don't know. He couldn't handle my mother, I guess, Helen answered angrily. It's in the past anyway. All right, John nodded, thinking for a moment. Maybe he should change the subject to something a little happier. Do you have anyone special in your life? You mean like a boyfriend? Helen asked him. What's a boyfriend? John asked her. It's when a guy and a girl are in a relationship without being married, Helen answered him. Anyway, to answer your question, I did, but right before I came here, he cheated on me, so I highly doubt it. Okay. John was a little uncomfortable. He really did want to talk to her about happy things. Friends? My boyfriend was cheating on me with my only friend, Helen answered. Do you have any happy memories? John asked. Well, I don't really need my old life anymore. I have this place to call home, and to tell you the truth, this place makes me happier than I ever was in my lifetime. Plus, I get to spend as much time as I want with you, Helen said warmly. I really am glad that you and Burke were the first people Allison and I met. That's good, John said, grinning. What made you start this crazy ordeal? The men that kidnapped me told me I would either have to cure the curse or die, Helen said lightly. I thought this sounded more fun. Wow, they seem to want things to go smoothly this time, John said with a chuckle. Helen smiled warmly at him. You know, there's just something about you that I can't get enough of. I'm glad that someone feels that way, John said, making Helen slap him playfully on the arm. Maybe we should go find somewhere to camp, Helen said, sad to leave the conversation. That was when she saw Natalie and Reggie running towards her for their lives. She looked up to see a bird-like human flying towards them. Damien, she whispered. Come on, we have to get out of the way, John ordered, grabbing Helen's arm. What about the others? Helen asked, looking around frantically as Damien kept flying closer to where her and John were standing. They'll be fine. It's you he wants. John tugged on the girl's arm, making the two of them tumble over just before Damien got close enough to almost grab Helen. He's coming back. The two scrambled to their feet and began to run as fast as their feet could carry them. The entire time, John had a hold of Helen, making sure she was keeping up with him. Look, a cave! Helen gasped. Her sides were splitting from the effort of running. The two quickly ducked inside, hoping they were safe. Damien landed and tried to enter the small cave, but his wings were too big to allow him entrance. Don't think any of them care about you, Helen, the angel said to her. They only want to be around you because you can save their lives. Yes, they only want you for what you can give them. So typical of humans. The voice added fuel to the newly planted seed of doubt. Helen looked at John, feeling as though she was about to cry. Shut up, John growled at Damien. You don't know what you're talking about. Why did you join Helen in the first place, John? Damien asked with a cynical smile on his face. It was an odd expression to see on such a beautiful face. I don't have to answer you. John was holding Helen closer to him now. He came with us so that he could get away from his brother. There was no need for John to answer because Helen answered for him. She looked into Damien's blue eyes. He is still with you for that reason only, Damien said to Helen. He was looking back into her eyes. Greg misses you, Helen. Helen, don't listen to him. John still had his hands on Helen, but she didn't even respond to what he told her. He wanted to be your friend from the very beginning, but that's what you want, right? You want a friend? Damien's voice was very alluring. I want a friend, Helen answered him. But I don't want to be friends with Greg or any one of you in that house. John has been honest with me since day one, unlike those of you living in that mansion. The voice screamed in Helen's mind, making her cower further into John's arms. The pain was almost unbearable. "You're going to die if you stay with these people. You can trust those words to be true," Damien growled. He flew away in his frustration. Helen just cried in John's arms for a minute. She was so tired of everything that had happened in her life. She just wanted a moment to let it all out once and for all. She cried for the father that had left her and the mother that had abused her. She cried from her boyfriend cheating on her with her best friend, and she cried for the best friend that she thought would be her friend forever. She even cried for all the fear and doubt she had felt in the new world that she was learning about on a daily basis. John just held her through her tears and waited until she was done crying to let her go. "I thought you were under his spell when you wouldn't look at me," he admitted to her when she was looking up into his eyes. "I just had to let him feel like he was winning. As little as I know about him, I figured he was a pompous jerk, and so I figured if he puffed himself up enough and was brought back to reality so quickly, he would get angry and fly away." Helen answered John's fears with reassurance. "I knew that you started this mission with me just to get away from your brother. Your brother wanted the same thing, and Allison just wanted to be done with being a spirit. Even if that were the reasons why the three of you came into my life, that's not the reason why you stayed. You guys are the best thing that has ever happened to me." John began. "Helen, are you guys okay?" Allison asked her friend frantically. She was at the entrance of the cave. Helen dried her eyes the rest of the way and pulled herself completely away from John. "Allison, am I glad to see you." Helen was grinning from ear to ear when she gave the spirit a big hug. "What happened in there?" Allison asked, John a little confused. Damon tried to convince Helen that none of us care about her, but Helen was too clever for those false words to actually work on her. John said with a proud smile. "Well, I'm glad that you two are okay," Allison had said to him, her arms around Helen. "Can we please go find a place to rest?" Ellen said impatiently, as if nothing had happened. Helen blushed and pulled away from Allison, feeling embarrassed from her moment of happiness. "We should probably walk for half an hour and then rest," she suggested. "Ugh, I haven't said a word about wanting to rest for the longest time, so why am I getting punished?" Ellen whined. Burke walked into the scene and went straight for Allison, kissing her on the top of her head before putting his arm around her. "I agree with Helen," he said, still keeping his arm around Allison's shoulder. Helen looked at Allison for a moment, making the spirit smile and blush. "Of course you would agree with Helen. You guys are your own little group," Ellen grumbled. "I agree with Helen, too," Andrew said as he stumbled over to the group with his father on his back. He put the old man down gently before walking closer. Reggie followed his son further into the area near the cave. "If we stay here, there's a good chance of them returning while we are sleeping," Reggie said to the girl. "Fine," Ellen said in defeat. She walked over to Andrew and grabbed him by his arm. "Then let's get a move on." She marched off with Andrew in tow. Natalie chose to come out of hiding then and jumped in front of Ellen, making the girl jump. "We need to go this way," Natalie told her. Reggie joined her in the front and helped take the lead. Ellen fell into step behind, still attached to Andrew. Allison and Helen started to walk together, with Burke and John not too far behind them. "So when did you guys decide to get all lovey-dovey?" Helen asked the spirit when she wasn't herself at that moment. But there was a lot of changing. Oh my god. But there was a lot changing in her life too. "I think it was the second or third day being at Burke's parents' house," Allison said with a rare smile on her face. "I can't believe it. That's so amazing," Helen said with a rare smile on her face, too. "I like you this way so much better," Allison said to the girl. "I had nothing to be happy about back when you first met me," Helen said with another smile. She couldn't stop. "I feel like I did when my parents were still with me." "I hope you keep feeling this way when we fulfill the prophecy," Ellen said to the girl with a smile on her face, too. Helen frowned at this comment, but didn't have time to say anything back because Allison went on ahead with Burke by her side. "Why did you have to say that?" Helen asked no one but herself. "She doesn't care about you. She only cares about herself," the voice whispered in her head. Helen couldn't help but feel like the voice was a little right this time. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 14. We're going to be moving on to chapter 15 next week. But I will say the reason why Helen frowned is because I changed the story a little bit. Helen, since she's the caretaker of the prophecy or the searcher or whatever, she actually starts figuring out the prophecy on her own, like it comes to her naturally. So You'll see throughout the book that she starts understanding what happens at the end faster than everyone else. But yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything else. I just wanted to put that on there because, yeah, it's kind of why she was frowning. But anyway, that will do it for today. And as always, I will put a link to the book in the description below. So if you are interested in buying the book, you are more than welcome to. If not, that is okay too. But yeah, anyway, I hopefully will see you guys next time. Bye!